Hey class, in today's lesson we are going to talk about roots and radical expressions, which is found in section 6-1 of your book. Our objective is to find nth roots. Alright, so just some examples about roots. 5 is a square root of 25 because 5 squared is 25. 5 is also the cube root of 125 because 5 cubed is 125, and then you can see how the roots are listed below. Okay, so we're going to be talking about powers higher than, or roots higher than squaring, or square root. So let's proceed. So here are some rules. It says if a to the nth equals b, with a and b being real numbers and n is a positive integer, then a is an nth root of b. So the main things we need to pay attention to here are that when it says when n is odd, there's only one real root. Okay. However, when n is even, you have two options. Either it's going to be b is going to be positive, meaning your answer is positive, or your answer is negative. When your answer is positive, that means you have two real roots. But when it's negative, there are no real roots. And we should know that because, for example, 5 squared does not equal negative 25. In fact, any base raised to a positive power or even power cannot equal a negative number. Okay. And then the last question statement says that the only nth root of 0 is 0. So 0 to any power or any root of 0 is always going to be 0. All right, so it says, what are the real cube roots of negative 1,000 and 1 over 27? So remember with these, with cube roots, right, there's only one solution. Okay, so we need to think about what that solution is. So for negative 1,000, we're trying to figure out what times what times what equals negative 1,000. All right, so first of all, let's think about the sign. A positive times a positive times a positive can't give you a negative, but a negative times a negative times a negative can give you a negative. So our number must be negative. And specifically, what times what times what gives you 1,000? It's going to be 10. So the real cube root of negative 1,000 is negative 10. Okay. Also, the cube root of 1 over 27. So we have to think of this actually as a fraction. So numerator, what times what times what, and again it's one solution. What times what times what is going to give you 1? It's going to be 1. And what times what gives you 27? It's going to be 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So 1/3 times 1/3 times 1/3 is going to be 1/27. All right, the next one says, what are the real fourth roots of 1 and 16 over 81? Remember, with with even roots, right, this is even, there are two solutions. And we should know that because we've dealt with square root quite a bit, and we know that that one's always plus or minus, so that should kind of trigger to us that as long as it's an even root, it's going to have two solutions. And so for 1, it's saying what times what times what times what is going to give you 1. That one's pretty straightforward. It's going to be 1. And then the next one, it's saying what times what times what times what is going to give you 16 over 81. And let me go back. This is not just 1, but this is plus or minus 1 as an answer. Okay, and we know that this one's going to be plus or minus whatever answer we get. But 16, what number multiplied by itself 4 times will give you 16 is 2, because 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 2 is 16. And 81 is actually 3, because 3 times 3 is 9, and if you take 2 of those sets, 9 times 9 is 81. So plus or minus 2/3 is what's going to work on that one. Let's do our try. All right, so what are the real fifth roots of 0, negative 1, and 32? So remember with fifth roots, this is odd. So there's one solution. So again, following that setup, 0 is fairly simple. We already said it's going to be 0, right? Any nth root of 0 is 0. Negative 1, there's only one solution, and if it's negative, it must still be negative, so that one's negative 1, and then 32 is going to be 2. Okay. Square roots, right? That means it's even. And that's 2 solutions. For this first one, it's no real roots, right? Because your answer can't be negative. Oops, no real roots, not real. And then up here, we would just take the square root of 36 and the square root of 121, but we still have to remember that's going to be plus or minus 6 over 11. Let's keep going. All right, so in example 2, now we're actually finding these roots. So the best thing that you should do is actually break your factors down as far as possible, and then as determined by the root on the outside of the radical sign should determine the type of grouping you're going to do. So remember when we were doing square root, we were doing pairs, right? So for this first one, cube root, first let's write our factor, which is 8 is, okay, let me go back. 8 is really 2 times 4, and 4 is really 2 times 2. So 8 is 2 times 2 times 2. Since this says cubed root, I will take 3 of them out, okay? And we will get 2 as an answer. And remember, because it is an odd, then that means it is 1 solution. All right, we're done with the first one. All right, this next one, that one should be pretty straightforward. You should be able to recognize that this is even, and so it has 2 solutions. However, we have an even root of a negative number, so that is no solution. It's not possible. And last, this one's a pretty interesting setup. It's basically telling you that negative 2 is written here twice. Its power, though it's not written, is a 2, which makes it even, which again means that it has 2 solutions. But in this case, we only have the 1 solution. And so if I take a pair out, we're going to get negative 2. Actually, I almost even beg to differ that it's still plus or minus 2. Sorry, it took me a second to think about that. Because, yes, I can see that if I take my pair out, I'm going to get negative 2. But go ahead and think about it another way. Negative 2 times negative 2 is really positive 4, right? Which is still 2 times 2, which still, if I take the pair out, I get positive 2. So I would beg to differ that this answer is actually plus or minus 2. All right, so let's practice a few. So here we go. This first one, remember it's odd, so it's going to be 1 solution. So if we broke down 27, that's 3 and 9, 3 and 3. And I'm pretty sure that because it's negative here, then this is really a negative 3 times a negative 3 times a negative 3. And I have to take a triple out. So my answer is going to be negative 3. On the next one, it is not possible to take an even root of a negative number, so this is no solution. The next one, this is really negative 7 and negative 7. It's a square root. So I'm going to say plus or minus 7. And then the last one, once again, it is an even root. It's not shown, but it's of a negative number. So again, it's no solution. All right, example 3, it says simplifying a radical expression. So it says, what is a simpler form of each radical expression? So now we're throwing in variables. Still the same thing, right? But we are going to go a little bit more in detail or in depth. So we will have for 16, 16 is 2 and 8, and then 2 and 4, and then 2 and 2. So 16 is 4 2, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 8 x's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, it's a square root, right? Just because it's not there doesn't mean it's not a 2. So we're taking pairs out. Okay, and so our final answer here is going to be 2 times 2 times x times x times x times x, which is 4x to the 4th. And this will actually not be a plus or minus 4 here. It will just be 4x to the 4th. All right. The next one, we have a to the 6th, which is 6a. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9 b's. Okay, we are doing triples here. So that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. So nothing's left under the radical sign. So this is a, b, b, b. So as an answer, this is a squared b cubed. The last one. There are 8 x's and 12 y's. And we're doing 4s. So here, 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 and here. So that's x times y times y times y, which is x squared y cubed. And we are done. So let's look at our try. All right, 81 is 9 and 9, and we should know that 9 is 3 and 3. So this is 4 3s and 4 x's. All right, this is square root because it's not listed. So this is 3 squared. I shouldn't write that. 3 times 3 times x, which is 9x squared. Okay, the next one. By the way, if you didn't catch it on the last one, I didn't mention it because there is a shorter way to do this. I'll show you on this one, the shorter way. The shorter way of doing this, instead of listing out all the variables, you can just take your power and divide it by your index. Take your power and divide by your index. So this answer will actually be a to the 4th, b to the 5th. The only time that this kind of can throw you off is when you have an extra number like a remainder, and sometimes it throws people off. So I generally, I show you both, but I prefer just writing it all the way out. Okay, and the last one, just to prove to you what I meant, there are 12 x's, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 16 y's. Okay, these are in 4s. So here, here, and here, here, and here, here, and here. So that would give us 3 x's that we're taking out and 4 y's. So that answer would be x cubed y to the 4th. Okay, and to prove that that was right, 12 divided by 4 is 3. That's why we got that. And 16 divided by 4 is 4. So either way, our answer is correct. Last one, it says some teachers adjust scores when a test is difficult. One teacher's formula for adjusting scores is below, where A is the adjusted score and R is a raw score. That should say if the raw scores if the raw scores on one test range from 36 to 90, what is the range of the adjusted scores? So 36 and 90 are considered our raw scores. So we're basically just going to substitute 36 and 90 in so that that will create a new range. So the original range is from 36 to 90. So our new range, we need to figure that out. So if I put 36 in here for R, that's really 10, square root of 36 is 6, so that's 10 times 6, that's 60. Up to, then the other one is 90, so 10 square root of 90. $90 is 10 and 9. 9 is 3 and 3, and 10 is 5 and 2. There's actually, you know what, I'm going to solve this a different way until we actually learn how to multiply roots, because that's actually the next lesson. So if you put the square root of 90 in your calculator, you would get 9.487, which is then 94.87. So I'll show you the other method once we get to it in the next section. Okay, and so this is our new range of scores. So original scores were 36 to 90, and now they have adjusted the scores to where the lowest grade is now 60 and the highest is 94.87. All right, so we're doing the same thing, except now it's from 45 to 90. So again, this was 10, or the adjusted score is 10 square root of R. So this first one is 10 square root of 45, and the other one is 10 square root of 60. So the square root of 45 is actually 6.708. So this would give us 67.08 as the lowest score now, up to square root of 60 is 7.746, which would give you 77.46. So once again, just looking at a new set of raw scores, if the raw scores were from 45 to 60, that new range is from 67.08 to 77.46. All right, guys, we are done. If you guys have any questions, please come see me for tutoring.